Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Chief Piper, if you'd lead us in prayer this evening.
Dear Heavenly Father, we pray for you this evening, pray for us this evening as we go about the business of the city. Guide and direct us and give us wisdom to make the best decisions that we can make. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Knopfsinger, if you would, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for February the 24th, 2022. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council, with the exception of Mr. Leach, are present this evening. Having a quorum, we will proceed. First item on our agenda this evening is our public forum. We have one person that has signed up to speak this evening, Brenda Powell.
Thank you. My name is Brenda Powell, 1409 31st Street in Vienna. I just wanted to come before council to highlight over a few things. I was noticing in the parks section of the budget on line 57, I think it is, it states about the McDonough restrooms replacement. It's got $145,000, and then it's got $20,000 CDBG ADA amenities. Instead of that being taken off, which I thought that it would be, and bring it down in cost, it was added. So I don't know if that maybe should be looked at and see if that is a, something that was put in there incorrectly. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the repairs that need to be made throughout the city with electrical things. I noticed that the electrical panel over at Lake Betsy is in really bad shape, in need of replacement. The issue that I think with that is basically having something set up somewhere to where that you can actually do inspections of different places, for the electric or whatever it may be, boxes that transpire so that maybe they could be replaced before they get to that degree. That's what was pictured in the documents that were provided. The decorations for the parks, I was kind of questionable about that. And the fact that the parks ask for money in their budget to put up Christmas lights, but it seems like that they put them, other than in the Parks Department, that they put them within the city. I would think that that would be falling under something else besides under the Parks Department. That's what I would have thought. The exercise equipment, the adult exercise equipment, I don't know why that can't be held off or substitute and buy the equipment that's needed or wanted for the children and for the parks and for the ball fields, as it was talked about before. The one piece that actually is called a harmony part, that's actually a xylophone. I think it'd be really great if there would be classes or something held for the kids to actually learn how to play it. Not just something there to go and, just to hit on or whatever, but to actually educate them on it. The other thing is I noticed that the upgrade project cost for the pool house, pump house, top pool, and allowances for contingency items, those amounts are, I don't know where those came from. If those are guesstimates of what it's going to cost, because I don't recall anything coming about to actually even have amounts, like $1,700,000 for the pool house, pump house $613,000, and the top pool $570,000, and the contingencies $117,000. My issue is having this in the budget before anything has transpired. Don't even have yet the strategy, the master plan is not even presented yet as far as what is going to be happening within the Parks and the Rec Department. So I was just kind of concerned about that being in the budget and the fact when we don't know what's going to happen. Just don't want money to go there if it's, because it just doesn't seem right until you get, put things out to bid and all that. I did notice also a $2 an hour raise has also been suggested or asked for through the senior citizens for a couple of the individuals there as a raise on the hour. I have a question about the class instructors. There's listed $38,000 to pay class instructors. It isn't broken down. It doesn't say how many there are or anything in regards to it, just $38,000 total. And I thought that maybe that should be broken down, at least for the public, to let them know what is being paid for out of that $38,000. And if Linda Kerr is actually an instructor and if she's getting paid also. That was something else I was curious about. I just thought that maybe it'd be stuff to bring forward. And the thing of it is with the senior center, I don't know what happened to the board. Back in 2020, when COVID hit, there was a board that actually was there. And of course, we couldn't meet and things of that sort. Some of them, unfortunately, had passed away. But I don't think there's a board now. And I don't know how and why that's not transpired and why there isn't a board yet for the Senior Citizens Center. And the things that are being asked, I think it's wonderful that the Wood County Senior Citizens is actually providing 100 meals for people here in Vienna, or the seniors. But the senior citizen building has 2 kitchens. They have a kitchen upstairs and they have a kitchen downstairs. They're not holding luncheons or anything anymore. I don't know what they're doing with the kitchens. I did notice that they're asking for some things, not only from the CDBG money that they requested or is going to be given to them for equipment and whatnot, but they're asking for other things in the budget. I just think that, if they're not, I just wonder what they're doing if they're not going to be having and holding luncheons or having anything for the seniors over there. I think it's important to know those things. And that, if nothing else, with 2 kitchens, I think it'd be wonderful if the city of Vienna would start some type of a program for the kids to be able to hold classes there to where children can actually learn how to cook. If they don't know, at least they could take classes and they would know. So that would be something to think about too. I do want to say that we do have a lot of people that come to the senior citizen classes over to the senior center. They come to a lot of the classes over there. They come from all over. They're not just Vienna residents. They come from everywhere in the area. And I think that's wonderful and fine, but there's no charge for the classes. So I wanted to bring that up too, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
The minutes from the February 17th, 2022 special council meeting have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Before we go into our regular business this evening, I do have something that I would like to do beforehand. Chief Pfeiffer, if you'd join me up front, please. But we do participate as one of the agencies in the Parkersburg Narcotics Task Force. For years, one of our officers has been assigned to that and has been very effective. Chief Piper served on it for many years. And so I would like to read this letter that we received from them highlighting this. I think it's incredible. The Appalachia High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area names the Task Force of the Year. the Parkersburg Violent Crime and Narcotics Task Force awarded Task Force of the Year. And so the group that our officer participates with, and Chief, would you tell everyone who is all a member of that task force? Not
Yes.
names, but
Yes,
agencies.
agency. So, this past year, every law enforcement agency in Wood County was a part of our narcotics task force. So, the Parkersburg Police Department, Vienna Police Department, Wood County Sheriff's Office, West Virginia State Police, and Williamstown Police Department. And that group, isn't the typical police officer you think of in a uniform. They wear generally plain clothes. They do long-term covert type investigations for illicit substances and narcotics. So what the mayor is going to read to you, this press release by the prosecutor's office, is an exceptional award. Years ago there, when we were designated a high-intensity drug trafficking county in West Virginia, enabled us to utilize some federal funding for overtime and money to perform these investigations. So they are intensive. This group does a fantastic job, and this press release that he's going to read to you is something that's unprecedented for our task force. They've done a great job for a number of years, but this is an exceptional thing. So,
The Executive Director of Appalachia High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, Vic Brown, announced the AHIDTA Task Force of the Year for 2021 is the Parkersburg Violent Crime and Narcotics Task Force. They were named this at the Executive Board meeting in Lexington, Kentucky. This prestigious award is presented annually from a field of 48 AHIDTA initiatives within the 4-state region covering Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. The Parkersburg Violent Crime and Narcotics Task Force is a joint effort led by the West Virginia State Police with participating agencies including the Parkersburg Police Department, the Vienna Police Department, the Wood County Sheriff's Department, the Williamstown Police Department, and the Wood County Prosecutor's Office. The High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program is administered by the Office of the National Drug Control Policy, a component of the President's Executive Office and created by the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988. ONDCP advises the President on drug control issues, coordinates drug control activities and related funding across the federal government, and produces the National Drug Control Strategy, which outlines administration efforts to reduce illicit drug use, manufacturing and trafficking, drug-related crime and violence, and drug-related health consequences. Appalachia HIDTA is an essential component of the President's National Drug Control Strategy, which provides additional federal resources to help eliminate or reduce drug trafficking and its harmful consequences. Law enforcement organizations within the HIDTA assess drug trafficking problems and design specific initiatives to reduce or eliminate the production, manufacture, transportation, distribution, and chronic use of illegal drugs, as well as money laundering. Director Brown said, the Parkersburg Violent Crime and Narcotics Task Force is extremely effective in the AHIDTA mission. In early 2021, they identified and arrested members of a drug trafficking organization delivering large quantities of fentanyl from Ohio to West Virginia. This same organization is believed to have been responsible for numerous overdoses in West Virginia by dismantling this drug trafficking organization. The Parkersburg Narcotics Task Force undoubtedly saved countless lives in their continued efforts to protect families in our West Virginia communities. In addition to the previously mentioned investigation, the Parkersburg Narcotics Task Force conducted 292 investigations, which resulted in approximately 3.68 pounds of fentanyl, 25.13 pounds of methamphetamine, 49.75 pounds of marijuana, and 48 firearms being removed from the community. Chief, to you and all your efforts, thank you very much.
thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you, guys. real quick, and I was gonna, those numbers that the mayor just read to you, to put that into a monetary perspective. 3.68 pounds of heroin is about $233,000. The 25 pounds of meth is about $455,000. 50 pounds of marijuana is about $100,000. That list he read to you, and there was more. I won't go on, but you all get the point. Collectively, you're getting close to $1 million worth of street value of illegal drugs that came off our streets, and that includes Vienna and all of Wood County and a little bit beyond. So thank you, Mayor, and thanks for Council for your support for our not only our participation, but just support in general for that mission. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief, is high one of those two stuff there?
No, not in Appalachia
Tennessee,
High.
Kentucky, Virginia,
Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, and West Virginia. No, that's the Appalachia High.
Yeah.
I think Ohio's in the Great. Don't quote me on that, but I think they're great.
Can I see the letter? I just want to get to the wording.
All right, so we move on to our agenda this evening. First up this evening is Mr. Mark Lewis from the Greater Parkersburg Convention and Visitors Bureau. Mark was not able to come to the initial program that we had, and Mark wants to give us an update on all the good activities that is going on.
All right, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. There's a couple new city council people from the last time that I was here a few years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and do like CVB 101 real quick. We're established in state code as the destination marketing organizations for our areas around the state. We are the only destination marketing organization in Wood County, and we are funded by the hotel motel tax that's collected on every room night sold in Wood County, within the cities of Williamstown, Parkersburg, Vienna, and within the county itself. So there's a 6% tax on each room night sold. The county or the individual municipality collects that tax, and then they remit half to us as per state code. So that's our primary source of funding. And 2 years ago, when people stopped staying in hotels, that hurt. Our funding was cut in half. Our hotel motel tax revenue was cut in half in 2020. We rebounded this past year to about 3/4 of our regular revenue, but it created a very challenging set of circumstances for us, not only because our funding was cut, but our hoteliers were struggling, restaurants, all of the people that we promote were having a difficult time. So we reacted to that by applying for all of the federal funding that we could to shore up our budget. We got a $150,000 SBA loan, Paycheck Protection Program, Employee Retention Tax Credit, and the County Commission has been very generous. They have virtually made us whole for the portion of lost tax revenue in the properties in the county. And because of those actions, we are in the position now to purchase a new building, a visitor center, and we're going to be closing on the old Point Park Marketplace building down just inside the flood wall at the Point. And we really believe that we're going to be able to do an even better job in that location. 27,000 people, over 27,000 went to Blennerhassett Island last year. So we're going to be on the way to and from. And as those people go by, we're going to try to make the place so attractive that they just have to stop in and say hello. And when they stop in, we can tell them about our restaurants, we can tell them about our shops, we can tell them about other attractions they may have missed on this visit, try to get them to spend more money while they're here, and try to get them to come back. So it's really exciting that we're in the position to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to get our renovations done prior to the tourist season this year, just not feasible with material shortages and labor conditions. So we're going to move in with a temporary site down there. We will be open the first day that the boat runs to the island, which is April 29th. And we plan to be open in that location with a temporary center through the end of October. We'll close down November 1st. hopefully have a plan in place. Well, we will have a plan in place, hopefully a contractor that can execute that plan. And then we'll do the renovations over the winter. And then next spring, we will open with a completely revamped building down there, a new visitors center. And something I've mentioned before when I speak to people is we're hoping to attract a business to put in a kayak and bike rental shop down there. I think that would be a great addition to that area, a great addition to our tourism offerings, not only for the people that are coming in to visit us, but for the community as well. And we're going to have, with the new kayak launch point at Spencer's Landing, it's going to be much easier because we're part of the Ohio River Water Trail. We worked with the Wood County Alternate Transportation Council to establish the Ohio River Water Trail, and covers all of the Ohio adjacent to Wood County and then several miles up the Little Kanawha. We're really going to promote that this year and try to get people to come and paddle our waterways. That's one of the things we're excited about. We're also excited about Discovery World on Market, the new interactive children's museum that Trace Ross, the Ross Foundation, and the Ross family are bankrolling and putting in there on Market Street. We're really excited to be able to promote that as a combination activity for families with kids with Blennerhassett Island, hopefully get people here to spend at least one night when they come to visit the area. So a lot of good things going on. Sorry I wasn't able to be here last week, and I was talking to Tom out in the hallway. I said next year our annual meeting will be on Wednesday night, so you can all attend. I promise you that. I've already put it on the calendar for next year. But we appreciate the support of the communities that we serve. I love what I do. I'm a lucky guy. I get to promote my hometown and the area I grew up in and tell people about all the great things we have and try to get them to come here and bring their money and leave some of it behind. Does anybody have any questions?
Mark, I saw a recent magazine article where you all had done some advertising for the area. Fantastic. Whoever did that really showcased the Mid-Ohio Valley, so good job on that.
All right.
So anyway, congratulations on your new building. I think it'll be a lot easier for people to find, so.
I think so too.
All right.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to you this evening.
All right.
Have a great evening.
Mark, thank you.
Everybody grab one of these handouts and one of these cards, because I'm going to go over this a little bit later on in my presentation.
Thank you. I'll meet you halfway.
Maybe you can roll over, Tom.
Fumble through here.
Steve, on the bottom of the microphone, just push the button and it should turn the green light on the side. You see it?
Yes,
No?
it's on.
All right.
Yes, yes.
There we go.
All right, folks, it's good to see everyone this evening. Sorry I couldn't be here the last time. Had a little Achilles tendon surgery, so that's what was going on with me. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Feel free to stop me if there's any questions, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to go over page by page, but just want to mention some things. First 2 pages in my packet, it's a narrative about the 3 departments I'm responsible for. Then I get into the highlights. And the first thing I have is payroll request. And it was mentioned at prior council meetings. It's been discussed at department head meeting. $2 across the board pay increase is what I'm requesting for my 8 employees. You can see there's a calculation, 2,080 hours times 2 times the 8 workers comes to $33,280. That's just the gross wages. Taxes and benefits would be in addition to that.
The next thing under payroll that I'm requesting, 2 additional pay grade increases. I have 2 S3 employees that actually at one point, before they came to the Parks Department, had S5 classifications. These guys are heavy equipment operators. They can actually be crew leaders. They have been a godsend for the Parks Department. So I'm just trying to get them money that they deserve based on their certifications. And the last thing I brought forward last year, payroll comparison, different parks around the state. And for myself, I'm requesting a $4 an hour pay increase. That comes to $8,320. With the pay grade increases, I missed that number too. It's $2,704. So actually the total is $44,304 for me and my 8 guys. Another payroll request, and then I'll get to it a little bit more. Under 541, which is recreation, I'm asking for some additional wages to cover additional costs for umpires, concession workers, gate workers, because we're planning, and that's what I just passed out, and I'll get into that, a number of tournaments this year. I think it'll be a really good thing. We've already gotten a lot of positive feedback, and it's early. So I'll obviously keep everybody posted on that. Now, in my highlights, I'm just going to go over what I feel are the most important things. Although one, utilities, projecting an increase based on actual numbers. For whatever reason, I always miss it by a year, then I'm scrambling for a budget revision. So this $15,000 extra that I'm asking for would solve that problem. Now I get down to maintenance, building and grounds, line 15 under parks. Basic maintenance on the average runs $30,000 to $40,000 for the buildings, the grounds, I mean, for everything that we're involved with. But some new things, and there's a letter from Jeff Kraft, the gentleman who does a lot of electrical work for us, and some unfortunate pictures of some of the electrical situations we have, asking for almost $34,000 for electrical work at Lake Betsy, basketball courts, pickleball courts, parking lot lights. Lake Betsy, we need that because we have an aeration system in the lake itself, and it's really unsafe at this point in time. Unfortunately, back in the day when some of the parks guys really aren't electricians, when you bury a line underground, you got to do it in conduit. Well, they didn't. So we're having some serious problems, and we're just lucky nobody's been hurt by this. Talking with Jack Mathers, he requested McDonough Park, approximately $7,000 for some projects. Up at Lake Betsy, I'm asking for $7,500 to build a small shelter. It would just be 2 legs, a roof. We'd put a picnic table because Lake Betsy is an area that we have really tried to dress up. And a lot of people are using it. We've stocked it with fish. Last fall, I never saw them, but my guys did. 2 over 30-inch catfish were pulled out of there. Now, the good and bad with that is we stocked it with bluegill, bass, and minnows, so I probably fed them. But anyway, we also sink Christmas trees as a safety net for these fish. And then repainting and repairs to the press boxes and my office trailer. Main repairs are the roofs. They're all starting to leak. They're at least 10 years old. I mean, they've done well, but we need to spend some time, a little TLC with these things. And then some painting. Office trailer, I'd like to put new underpinning around the trailer. That'll keep the varmints away, because undoubtedly every year, once or twice, I have to get a raccoon or a skunk. And when we get the skunks, they get scared and they spray, and it's kind of nasty over there. Then we go down to line 57, capital outlay buildings. I'd like to replace the McDonough Park restroom with a restroom similar to what we've got over here at Spencer Park. When that restroom was done, there were some issues, unfortunately, and it was much cheaper. But the $165,000 is pretty much today's price. It would have to be put out to bid. It would also be ADA compliant. So what I'm requesting is $145,000 out of the general fund budget and an additional $20,000 from community block grant funds. Underline 58, capital outlay other. I'll start at the top. Some additional Christmas lights, some lighting displays and replacements, $25,000. A new tree at Neal. We're trying our best to resurrect this one. It's not on life support yet, but it's close. And if we can salvage it, and you all are gracious enough to include that, if we don't need the money, we're not going to spend it. I promise that. But a new replacement tree is approximately $25,000. Over at the playground, the more exercise pieces, we have that big concrete area next to the adult outdoor playground. A lot of kids, middle school, high school, young adults have been using what's over there right now. I've been in touch with the phys ed teachers at Jackson. This spring, they plan on using that as part of their curriculum. You bring kids down and tell them it's for exercise, they don't do it. It's a competition, they're all going to do it. So we would just like to expand that a little bit more, and I've got a number of pictures included in the packet of some things we'd like to do. Over at the ball fields, talking about the tournaments, I did travel ball with my girls and always took my son along. There's always somewhere for little kids to be. There's nothing aside from throwing rocks on top of the shelter. Like behind field 2, like to put a nice playground piece similar to what we've got over at Spencer Park. We would dig a little bit into the bank area. We would either use concrete block, landscape timbers, a little bit of everything to keep the mulch in place. But at least it would be something for small kids. And I would also have to put up a net in the event that there are some errant fly balls or foul balls coming that way. But I think that would be a great addition over in that area. And then under 3, number C, other playground pieces for youth, $10,000. There's some pictures of a couple different ideas, but there's some musical pieces. They're like xylophones, and these things are extremely heavy duty. We do have some cameras working, so hopefully if there are issues and we do install this stuff, we can catch the little hoodlums on film. Paving of the community building parking lot, it's seen better days. Approximately $115,000 with that. Paving the access road from it that goes back to our garage area and the garage parking lot is $65,000. And then we've also gotten a price to seal the walkway up in McDonough Park. It's that 1/3 of a mile track on the grassy area inside. And going over the hill, it's approximately a half mile from Jackson to the rec building. It's in okay shape. I'm not 100% sure that everything was great when it was initially done, but there's not drainage everywhere, and things are starting to slip and crack a little bit, and this will just preserve it. Also, over at the playground area, I'd like to concrete the entryway to the restrooms from the access road, or from the access road to the restrooms. And that's approximately $18,000. And the BMX restroom is the one over by the trailer, by the rec building. I'd like to expand concrete around that to make it more ADA compliant. Never really thought about it, but I've seen people from time to time on crutches, wheelchairs, these things. It's tough to navigate in the grass. So I'd just like to expand that skirt a little bit and make it easier for folks.
Is that gravel now?
It's grass. Then it gets into a concrete walkway around it. But I'd like more concrete, like a ramp or an entrance area. Similar to what we have on McDonough from the track. You can walk on the the concrete to get to the restroom. It'll just make it easier for folks, I think. Line 59, capital outlay equipment. My Jeep Liberty is on its last leg. While I'm unable to drive, I make sure my guys drive it, and nobody wants to claim it as their own. Right now, we're at a point where it was about every other week. Now it's about every week. I need a quart of oil. And Craig's guys up at the shop have done a great job keeping this thing moving, but it's on its last leg as well. So, and I know the prices of vehicles and used vehicles is actually what I'm more interested in, are pretty high. So I've not talked with anybody to see about that price, but that was just a guesstimate of what I've seen online. Also like to get a new UTV for McDonough Park. We have one that was being used down at the ball fields. It's really too small for what we need. And it's actually a little too small for what they need at the ball fields. So I'd like a larger one for McDonough, and it's $16,500. One also with a winch. We need another Turf Tiger mower to replace the one that we're using for parts right now. So to keep our mowing force intact, I'm requesting one more of those. Contributions, $1,000 for the Vienna 5K run. I think Lou Molinaro was here about that. And I totally forgot to mention about the Ymca Mud Run. Come up with a potential $1,000 for them, for T-shirts, for fruit, for water, stuff like that. Last year was the inaugural race, and it was, met with very, very positive comments. Although the first couple that I talked to said it was an okay course. Well, these people travel all over the country and do the real mud run kind of things. So the ones that like a triathlete would do. Everybody else was pretty happy. So I believe it's June 4th is the target date we're looking at for the mud run this year. And it pretty much parallels the disc golf course. So it works out real well. Moving on to recreation, I'd mentioned in line 3, an additional money for tournaments, which would also affect the line 4 FICA expense. Materials and supplies, cost for extra supplies for tournaments, and concessions for resale. Then get to line 58. Over behind the senior center at Spencer Park, there's a canopy with 2 poles. It's a nice shade area. I'd like to get another one of those to put up by the tennis courts, because we had trees removed for walkways that people are really pleased. So we connect everything. Everything is ADA compliant, but I'd like to have a shade area for folks as well. Also, I'm looking for some additional benches at the playgrounds. The ones we have now out of recycled material came from the Solid Waste Authority. I've spoken to Andy Hartleben. That was a grant years back. There are none available, but he's promised me if it does happen, we'll be one of the first on the list. But in the meantime, I've actually had 3 folks approach me and give contributions for nice benches. 2 of them will be at McDonough when they come in, and the other one we just installed it and put it together and put it up at the pickleball courts. Line 59, capital equipment. There's a number of items for the concession stand. We expect to be busier. We borrowed some equipment from Parkersburg High School, from their boosters. One thing led to another, and we picked up a piece of equipment. It was a bun warmer. I mean, it's a pretty good apparatus. Well, it didn't work, and come to find it, we got blamed for it, but we come to find out that the boosters knocked it over and ruined it. So anyway, we'd like to have some of these things for ourselves, and there's pictures included. And the last thing is a UTV for the ball fields, where the guys can load all their paint equipment for the different fields that we do. Also include up at Jackson, because we use it for the soccer field. We do the football field for them as well. So that would be approximately $12,000. Before I get to the last thing, real quick, passed out these cards and a thing about baseball, softball tournaments. Make a long story short, there's been changes over the years with Vienna Rec, some good, some bad, and with the city, some good, some bad. And we're doing our best to try to bring things more under one umbrella. The positive for me right now is Mr. Knopfinger is president of the rec board, and Ms. Elam is my council person who's also on the park board and the rec board. So we've talked about these things, but this card is really a pretty cool thing. We do our signups right now, baseball, softball, t-ball, football, cheer, and tennis are through the city. The others are through Vienna Rec. Well, everything goes through the same process, and it works out real well. So this was step one. But there's some other things that we want to do on the back of the card. It lists all the various sports, tells you how to sign up. This is a great tool. So I actually got some extra tonight. I will pass them out. But this leads me to the handout with baseball, softball tournaments. We used to host the state high school softball tournament. We knew when the new lady came into the SAC office that it was going to be leaving, and it went down to below Charleston. Now I can't even think of the name of the great rec place down there. Shawnee, yes. So we knew it was coming. The college tournament changed their date so it was either Lexington or here. The conflict was always them versus the Kentucky Derby. Unless they came here, it was OU's graduation. But they're going to stay down there, which is fine. That was a small tournament. There was a lot more time and effort put into putting that on than making any money. We're looking at 8 tournaments, and you can see listed under baseball, softball, and projected revenue. It all depends. I'm doing some things right now. We're looking at hopefully at least 10-team tournaments. It could be more. It could be less. It could rain. There's a lot of things, here, there, and everywhere. But if tournaments don't happen, we're not going to spend the money. But you can see we have tournament fees based on the different age groups. We're looking at very low admission prices, $5 for the day, 8 and under, or for 8 and older. Or there's a possibility of a standard fee, like $200 or $250 per team, and then we don't have to worry about the gate. I think we'll make more money the other way, because I'll get to why I'm more concerned about that. Then on the back, projected expenses, our umpires, concession workers, product for resale, and the tournament supply, baseball, softball, trophies. And like I had said in here, it all depends on the size of the tournament. There's 2 examples. We had 2 tournaments last year, a 10 and under 4 team, and the net effect was a profit of $1,136, and an 8 and under 3 team tournament, and the net effect was a profit of $1,019. With tournaments the size that we think we're going to be able to do, we should easily net between $7,500 to it could be $10,000. What we'd like to do, and this was the brainchild of some of the board members, and I think it's a great thing, Vienna Rec would be involved. So what we can do is run these through VRIA. At the end, we have whatever profit that can be earmarked for certain projects, whether it be that playground piece that I'm talking about, whether it be new fencing, whether it be, something somewhere, but it could be designated as such. And a little bit of the feedback I got, and I totally agree, because I used to see this when we traveled. People were more likely, and we just write them a check. Here you go. This will help the cause. So, are we out to gouge people? Not at all. Bottled water, we sell it for $1. I can get a case of whatever comes in a case, 36 or 40. I can get it for $4. So I'm not going to charge people $2. We could, but this is This is in the early stages, but it was presented at a rec board meeting Sunday. Wow. Cast is on tight. But anyway, and it was met well. So I see a stronger relationship. I see more of a partnership. I see the division that is going away continuing to go away. So anyway, any questions on that stuff, please let me know. Did talk with Tim Nolan, get these things on, there's websites for people to search for tournaments. And right now, it's in our regular rec league, it's going to be Vienna, Williamstown, St. Mary's, and New Martinsville. Worthington's they're having some issues. They are not Little League affiliated. They've come to our schools and passed out all the propaganda, but they allowed more travel teams. So it's a higher quality of play into their league. So you've got a rec team where little Johnny doesn't even know which hand to put his glove on, and you're playing against kids that have been playing baseball for 4 years. So it's just not fair. We ideally, probably not this year, but maybe next year, we could have 2 leagues. We could have a travel league. We can have a rec league. But first and foremost, it's rec for the kids. And that's what we're about. So anyway, a lot of good plans, and I'm pretty excited about this. So any questions at any time, and it doesn't have to be tonight. Well, everybody's got my email or my phone. Just give me a buzz. The last thing that I want to briefly touch base on is the pool. The budget that I've presented is the basic operating costs as it has been in the past. There's been discussion on the pool. There are more problems with the pool, and I know there has been some talk. Do we do a total upgrade, shut the pool down for a summer and move forward? Personally, I think that's a good move. We've noticed now more cracks and problems in the concrete where I can actually put a softball in some of these holes that go into the crawl space that's 4 or 5 feet deep. I'm not sure. I've not talked to the health department. Would we pass inspection? I really don't know. But all I ask from you folks is preferably by the end of this month, a decision which way we're going to go. Because I've got Jackson Middle School that usually does their Olympics. I've got professional pool management who runs the operation. And the newsletter will be coming out. So it'll be a great marketing tool to let people know. And I know people would be upset, but I know people would be more upset if nothing is done. So.
You say by the end of the month, meaning February?
Yes.
Okay.
Or as soon as possible. So. One thing that, another thing that I did want to mention, this is a good community. I choose to live here. Yes, Linda and I are both from Pennsylvania. One favors the wrong side of the state. One of us picks the good side of the state. I won't get into that right now. But anyway, it's a great place to raise it. You're out of order. It's a great place to raise family. All my kids have migrated back this way. People come here for jobs, for opportunities. I know I lived in Parkersburg before I moved here and before I started with the city. And utility bills are more expensive there. They had flood wall fees depending on where you lived. The price of living here is better, but people are looking for schools, they're looking for churches. But one thing I hear from a lot of people is parks and recreation. What do we have to offer? And I'm really thankful. It's now almost 4 years that I've been back as the parks director. The council has been really good to us and allowed us to do a number of projects that we have. Everything I'm asking for is not just a wish list, just I put it down on paper. I can't arrest people, all the crime. I just heard what talked about with the chief. I think it's absolutely awesome. Fire department, I can't put it out. Code enforcement, Public Works, if there's a sewer backup, I call for help. Senior Center, community events, it's all extremely important, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Mayor, that he'll be talking about that. But a big thing for folks is parks and recreation. So I'm not saying it's all my way or no way, but we've gotten feedback. When the prior director was here, he and I actually came up with our own little 5-year plan, and things weren't done. So that's where I've been feeding off that stuff. And there's room for growth. So anyway, basically that's all I want folks to know, or you folks to know. Does anybody have any questions? You want to see a gross picture of my
Don't look at it, it's ugly.
Back to the requesting the pay grades from an S3, I'm sorry, yeah, an S3 to an S4.
Right.
How does somebody go down from being, you said they were an S5 before in another department?
Yes, actually, is Craig here? Oh, well, I thank him because he trained them. There was an opening and it was an S1. So in order to take that position, he went from a 5 to a 1. The second one came, there was an S2 position open. Well, then talked with the mayor, and they both have CDL. They've got all kind of certifications, so we got them up to a 2. Then we got them up to a 3. But these guys, if Craig gets in a pinch, can use them and will use them. He's been good to me, but I don't need to call him to do a lot of these things because these were probably 2 of his very good workers, and they've been great to me. So that's how that happened.
These are long tenured employees of the city. Neither one's been here 20 years, but I'm thinking one is about 16 and the other one's 18. I know that CDL license is very important. It's hard to keep people that have those qualifications in municipal government, right? I mean, we see this all over.
And I've offered it to all my guys. If you want to get this, but they don't. So I've only got 2 drivers, 2 CDL qualified drivers. But they're heavy equipment operators, and they do a great job. Anybody else?
I'm just curious, the Neil tree, Steve, what we've got, do you remember when we got that, how old that thing is?
It's over 10 years old.
Is it pretty much life expectancy, or do you have any
It's
idea?
about 10 years. The problem is the electrical hookups, the saddles, and we've replaced them, and some of the wires start to fray. If you look at it, if a real electrician looked at it, no one's going to get shocked, but it's not in good shape. And whenever it rains, we've always got issues. And I think that tree, I have another one over in the park for tree lighting and entrance to the playground area as well. But I think the one on Neil really sets it off as you're driving up. Now that we have those new lights on the poles, I mean, they're awesome. And it's just really a neat thing. And why is this the parks? No reason other than we used to store this stuff. So that's why we take care of these lights and want to grow them. Also have some ideas for next year, next holiday season. But, at this point in time, I want to get better first before I move forward. But I'll bring that stuff to you folks at a later date.
All right, Steve, thank you.
Right. Just push this.
Yeah, on the bottom, and you have to hold it. Should turn red, or should turn off.
And hold it. Got it. Thank you.
All right, so this evening I'm going to be doing the community center, which is the senior center, and civic promotions. I gave you a pass out. I would like you to throw the other ones away. These are the latest ones from today. All right, so these are the numbers that I'm going to reference. Okay, so we'll start with the 905. Okay, the senior center. When I went back through the numbers, I looked at these and I thought, well, this has been a bad couple of years because of COVID. And so I went back and asked to have the information done on a historical basis to see just exactly how we had done with these two items in the past, because we all have to make adjustments for the way that our community events and all of our other things were affected by COVID. And so I'd like to take you through this. Obviously, as everyone else, the first 10 items are Amy's. She'll put those numbers in. And on these line items that you see here on 905, we're going to go right down the list. There are no telephone expenses, and the printing expenses, has been $12,000. On the printing, the printing is $2,500. And on the printing, I've left that where it is for this coming year. As we go through this process, obviously these numbers that we're going to get are not going to be the final numbers. We're going to have to go back and make cuts in order to make whatever expenses. Steve just made a presentation and would like to have several capital improvement items. When we get down to where things have to be cut, there are several items in this budget that are probably going to get looked at again. And the reason why I say that's because when I did the analysis on this by comparison, during the past year for printing expenses, we've allowed $2,500, but we've used absolutely none. So that's a zero expense right there. So if we need to trim it some, we can do that. All right. But for now, I'll give you the numbers that I've put in here for this year, knowing that if we have to go back, these are based on actual usage, not any kind of other projections. These are simply because if we didn't use any of the money that we allocated, that's an area where we could, trim it some. All right. So the next one is $12,000, and that's the utilities. And we've used 43% of that money. So that's a pretty good guesstimate right there. And so I would recommend that we leave that one where it is. The next one is travel. The number was $12,100, and I've left it at $12,100, knowing that this past year, because of COVID, we only used 3% of that so far. Now, if we get to do the bus trips and go visit the lights in Ogilvy and the other things, we'll probably want to leave that money in there. It just depends on how free we are with, our social distancing and all that stuff. So when you go back, the next one is maintenance on the buildings and grounds, $22,000. I've reduced that down to 20. We've only used 16% of that entire budget.
Give us line items that you're going, because I'm looking at the budget I have, the budget you just now gave us.
Yes.
And it'll be much simpler if you have the money.
All right, so 15 is building maintenance and grounds. All right. And I've put in there $22,000 or $20,000. We've only used 16% of that budget through 2/3 of the year. The next one is maintenance on equipment. I've left it at $6,000. We've only used 19% of that budget. So, and as I say, we're 2/3 of the way through the year. Maintenance on autos. I've left it at $2,000. We've spent no money out of that line item this year. Going on down to advertising and legal publications. It was $3,000. I've reduced it down to $1,000 because there again, we spent no money out of that line item. When you go to the next one, training education. Let me make sure I'm right on this.
That's 21, right, Mayor?
Yeah, I gotta get me a straight edge here. Okay. Training and education was $1,500. We've reduced that down to $600. There was no usage on that line this year either. Dues and subscriptions, it was zero. This year, we've put $1,000 in it because there's some certifications and what have you that have to be attained, and so we've got to pay for those. Professional services is a zero, and we go down to contract services. Contract services was $10,000, and we're going to leave it at 10. We've spent 44% of the budget in the first 2/3 of the year. There may be an additional increase on that one simply because everybody's raising their wages for their employees and costs are going up. But at this point, I'm going to leave it at 10, and we'll see where we end up with that one. All right, materials and supplies is line item number 41, and that was $14,000. I've left it at $14,000. We've used 37% of that up to this point, but that would be someplace that typically, if we needed to gather money from, it would be from out of the materials and supplies. The auto supplies, which is line 43, was at $1,500. I've reduced it to $1,200. We've only used 6% of that, but we may end up buying a set of tires for one of the cars, so we're going to leave that in there. The uniforms increased from $350 to $450. We haven't spent any of that money out of that line item, but we do have 2 employees there now, so in order to keep them in uniforms and what have you, I've added $100 for that. So that's 905. I'll now go to 912,
Can I ask a question first? Is that okay? On the 905?
if you like.
Yeah. I completely agree with going back and seeing like what percentage we've spent so far and to say, okay, well, we haven't spent anything there yet. But as we look ahead, is there anything, as we're projecting what's coming in the next year, is there anything that would cause us to need to increase any of those areas? You see what I'm saying? Like, I totally agree with the looking back and saying, okay, well, we haven't spent it yet, so we're probably not going to, or we can knock a little off. But is there anything coming
On this section, 905, I don't believe there's anything on the horizon. We don't have any building maintenance of any consequence. We did all that last year with the painting of the building. We replaced all the air conditioning systems, so we don't have that to look at. If everything goes the way we think it's going to go, the kitchen refurbishment will be handled by CDBG money, so we won't have to spend that $8,000. That'll all be paid for with our CDBG grant. There's just not a lot to this. This is, pretty much the nuts and bolts. All right.
Also, I wanted to ask, so I know those line 1 through 10 is what Amy fills in. All the other department heads and others have, told us about their 2-hour, increase and that kind of stuff. We had the note from the stuff that we had in our packet about that request. Is that
$2 increase will be included if that's council's decision to raise the wages of all the employees $2. Now, the only issue there is that $2 applies to all full-time employees. So that $2 raise would not affect our concession workers, or it would not affect the part-time employee that we have at the senior center. If council chooses to increase that, that's council's wishes. But the $2 would be in the calculations as was presented by every other department.
Okay, so when
there's no exclusion. If one gets it, they all get it.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I have a question about that as well, because, we talked about this last year. It was considered that possibly this part-time person would then move into a full-time position, and I understand that's not what, Ms. Kern is asking for. It's for $2. But I went back and I got information from Stephanie Brockman. Do you know how many people make less than $13 an hour? I mean, that's in the city of Vienna, of our employees.
I do not.
Okay, well, it's very few. Right now, we have, just 4 people that make, not including this part-time employee, but 4 people on the payroll that make less than $13 an hour, right? So, and we know, regardless of whatever happens, it's $2 an hour that everyone has been requesting, we still know that we have the 35% longevity, right?
Mhm.
So once that 35% longevity happens, then you're going to have every employee except for one making $13 an hour or more. So you have one employee, one full-time employee that will end up making $12.89 an hour. Okay? So I want to go back to what was said by everybody that's come up there and presented their budget is we talk about the supply and demand of the local labor force, right? So it's been mentioned, you can go work at Hobby Lobby and get paid $18.50 an hour. Okay. But, my argument's always been, well, you don't get that insurance and benefit package, the 8% that the city kicks in for retirement, so on and so forth. I think when you want to attract good employees, and I think from my understanding, this is a good employee, that $11 an hour, that's less than $17,000 a year, and yet this person's still going to be responsible for their insurance, their retirement, and so on and so forth. I think that, I hope the council would consider that $2 an hour raise for this person so that we can maintain them. I think there's, that's just where we are in the labor market. So, and every other employee, like I just mentioned, is going to end up making, except for one, over $13 an hour. Most of them are going to be, above $14 an hour.
At some point, once we finish all this, Amy will do the calculations as far as what the payroll increase would cost, how much the increased benefits will cost, because there's 7% that goes along with Social Security and all the other things, all right? But in addition to that, there's also the police retirement, and all of those numbers have to be added together to find out what the actual number is that would be the increase in our budget. At that point, you're going to realize this is what the actual pay raise costs. It's a number that we'll have to, deal with. And so until that calculation is out there, we need to wait and see where that's going to be. And if we have the money in our budget to afford that.
Well, that's why I do get frustrated with the budget because we don't have those numbers now and we're knee-deep in talking about this budget. And I'm a little bit upset because I totally prepared I had a discussion with the department head, understand completely what is being requested, and then, you hand this out ahead of time and it's like, wait.
What department head did you have a?
Well, I correct myself. I understand we don't have a department head for the senior center, but we have the person who manages it and, puts the budget together. I wish she were here tonight so we could hear from her, but whatever. It's like we're dealing with one set of numbers, and then right now you just hand this out and you're making all these changes, and so it's a little bit hard to follow.
Okay. Well, I wanted you to have the latest numbers, and that's why I went back. I mean, Kim, I don't know how you do it, but if you put $1,000 into an account, into a line item, and then you spend absolutely nothing out of that line item, you might want to take a look at reducing that. If you put $1,000 into that line item and then you end up spending $1,500, you might want to add that. You might want to bump that line item. It's numbers. It's just back and forth. And I understand that some of these things are for different items, but the bottom line is these are all numbers on a budget sheet here that if we're not using it, we might want to back it down a little. If we need a little more, we need to add it in. I don't know how many times Mr. Bibby and I have had this conversation. He likes things to be in the budget because when we come back and we say, hey, we need to do this, and he says to me, why wasn't it in budget? That's hard to answer because things come up, but it should be in the budget. Am I correct, Roger? That is the way you like to do it. And it should be in the budget, but that's the reason why. So I'm trying to give you the latest numbers, all right?
Here's the thing, is I request a short budget report, and I know I irritate Mrs. Roberts with it because I do go over it all the time, and I look at everything, how far we are in that budget. And you had mentioned, trimming stuff, there are plenty of line items where we don't end up using all of that money. I mean, if you go through the whole entire budget for every department, you can pick through it and find that stuff. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's kind of hard to go back from last year and look at where we are considering with the COVID and, everything that happened. And events that bus trips didn't happen, so on and so forth, that hopefully we're not going to be in that position this year. And I know that if the pool does not open, then, some of those events are going to happen, the movies and such will happen at Spencer's Vienna. So I don't want to see us necessarily pull back from what we've been doing, and I guess my big statement is I wish I would have had this ahead of time to prepare, because I feel very unprepared.
Well, the good news on this is we're still in the middle of the process, all right? It will be up to council to decide whether or not you want to restore the numbers to where they were, or if you want to take them lower. These are simply guidelines that I've put forth as a recommendation to say, we tweaked it a little, all right? I think it's fair. There's nothing in here that got hurt, nothing, all right? And so when you look at these numbers, we're going to go through this for the next month again, all right? We'll put it back. We'll adjust it however it needs to be done, all right? Because I can tell you right now, based on my experience, when we get through all of these things, the budget's going to be out over $1 million. It's just the way it happens, all right? It'll be way over that this year because of the Parks Department's request for $1.7 million. All right. I mean, I didn't add Steve's numbers up, but I'll guarantee you that based on all the equipment and all that stuff, it'll be, $2 million out. All right. And so then it comes back to us to figure out where are you going to come up with $2 million? Because if you can't find it, then you got to take it off. And that's where it goes. We'll do it. We always do. It never fails. We'll balance the budget. All right. But that's what I'm saying to you is, I give you these numbers tonight. If you don't like them, then you'll have plenty of opportunities to come back and say, hey, I really would like to see that extra $2,000 put back in that line item for this reason. Okay, if it's a reasonable reason and we can afford to do it, then we can do that.
So, talking about the pool, that can be, depending on how we go, but it can be done where money can be taken out of capital reserves and put into the general fund budget, is that correct? And then, let's say as a council, we came up with a budget that we want to do a $2.5 million pool project, okay? And we decide we want to do it out of capital reserves, then the process, Amy, would be to take it from capital reserves, put it in the general fund, and then budget it, and then track those line items? Like, okay.
Yeah, they would just make a budget revision, move the money into general fund.
Yes.
Move the money into general fund. That budget revision would go to the state would approve it, and then you can spend it.
Mayor, I have one more question. Just as a basis, and maybe Amy, this is for you. It says that the class instructors is increasing because we have an increased number of classes. What do we normally spend on class instructors? Do you have any idea? Okay. Okay.
All right, so let's go to 912 then. Same as the last time. The first items are Amy's. We go down to the next one. Item number 12, which is the printing expense. I've reduced that one by $500. We spent zero money out of that line item. We go down to building rents and equipment. It was at $36,500. We've spent 38% of that line item in the first 2/3 of the year. I've left it at $38,000. That particular line item right there is where we take most of the expenses for the activities that we run in the summer. Depending on what the issues with the pool are, we may need to increase our activities so we can entertain our citizens. The next one is advertising and legal promotions. It was 15,000. I've reduced it to 10. We've spent 1% over the first 2/3 of the year. Going down to professional services, it was at 84,000, and I've left it at, or excuse me, 8,400. I've left it at 8,400. We've spent 0% out of that line item. When you go down to contract services, it was 2,400. I've left it at 2,400. We spent 0% out of that line item also. When you go down to materials and supply, it was $10,200. I've left it at $10,200. Again, that seems to be the most easy place if you need to do budget revisions to take it out of that line item right there. We've only spent 14% out of that line item this year. And so that's where I stand on the corrections to 912. All right.
What is that?
I got the 23 professional services. Can you tell me who's included in that? What is that?
That's mainly fans.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Fans, the sound lights, stage, dog pads, sound and stage, Halloween. If you look at her, what was in what she provided, there's a list of what is taken out of mine.
So, hang on for a second. I mean, prior discussion with, Ms. Kern was that anticipated 9,900 for that particular line item for the band and these activities. And you think that we can do that for 8,400?
Yes, ma'am.
So what would you cut out of here?
At this point, I've cut all the cuts I intend to cut. The rest of it's up to you all. I left this one pretty much alone. I took $500 out of line 12, which had 0% usage.
No, I'm talking about the event. Which event would we need to cut?
She'd asked for 9,900.
Yes, I know that. Yes, what she asked for was not what the budget was last year. Okay?
I think that was in anticipation of all the price increases that, we're all dealing with inflation right now. I know that, there were some slight increases in that attributed to that $1,500. So that's why I'm confused how you're getting $8,400.
That's my opinion. All right? I mean, I deal with this every day through all of the events and the planning and the way things go. All right? It's been a strange 2 years. We have no idea where we're going to be moving forward. It seems like it's trending in the right direction. All right? And honestly, if you feel like we need to pad that line item by $1,500, then we can do that. I don't feel that we'll use it.
I wouldn't use the word pad.
Add to it,
Okay.
supplement it.
So you are not anticipating that we would cut any of these things that are planned, and you think that it'll come in at $8,400 and not, the extra $1,500.
That's,
Am I correct in that's what you're saying?
yes, it's a guess, Kim. I have no idea what the world's going to be in 6 months.
Well, I understand that none of us have a crystal ball, and it would be great if we did, but, I do know that a lot of phone calls are made, and, the numbers seem to be pretty rock solid on that, $1,500 extra to account for all the pricing.
Okay. You're welcome to adjust it. I'm just telling you my thoughts on it because we spent 0% out of that line item. 0. Okay?
like I said, I'm probably a little flat-footed because I've been preparing on one budget and get handed something as you approach the podium that's completely different than what we anticipated.
You know, I go back to the same thing I said before. I wanted to give you the latest numbers. These were as of today. I finished these today.
I was
Okay.
working on this all day.
Well, I'm just telling you. That's how, I mean, you asked for accurate numbers. I gave you as accurate as I could get. Okay? But there again, if you think that's unreasonable, you want to put the $1,500 in, we can do that if council agrees to your adjustment. That's just my opinion. Okay? $1,400 out of a $11 million budget's not going to be much of an impact.
Totally agree. And I, once again, go back to if you go through and how much money was used in every single line in every single department, there's all kinds of ways you can make these kinds of adjustments, you see. But this, I get concerned because I do think that the family fun stuff that we do is a big draw. And I'm concerned, especially if we are not able to have a pool this summer, which I mean, I don't think we're gonna be able to have a pool this summer. That, if we don't fund these events, you know, then we're already at a disadvantage because we're not gonna have a pool. And a lot of people aren't gonna not have a good summer because we don't have a pool. Not only little kids, but, you know, plenty of seniors, adults, everybody uses the pool. So I don't wanna see us not, continue with these things that are.
You know, the bottom line is whatever's not spent goes into the carryover. It's not like we're losing money or buying things that we can't afford. If we spend 0% out of a line item, it simply goes into the carryover and we start next year with that money. So, you know, it's not going to waste. Okay? All right.
I have one
And
more.
I'm always available.
Well, I have a question. Is that I had down in the agenda that it was festivals, senior center, and civic promotions. Did I miss festivals somehow?
It's included in this.
Oh, it's not its own budget?
Oh, wait, I'm so sorry.
No, we don't have the festivals budget.
It didn't change.
It's still $5,000. So if that is still $5,000, and then I know that it was asked by the Friends of Vienna for $25,000.
It's very, we can always take that 5,000 or if the council, wishes to fund that $25,000 and you'd like to, that's just been appropriated for a future festival. You'd like to roll that into that amount or use the 5,000 towards that. I'd be, happy to do that.
So, just so I don't misunderstand what you're saying, so if council would intend to give the $25,000 to the Friends of Vienna to make that event as small as possible, could we take that $5,000 from the festival line, so that so total $25,000, not $30,000?
I think, I think at the time that $5,000 was put in there, I think the thought was it was to do a future festival in conjunction with the mall. So, yeah, and I do apologize for that.
Would you be able to send that to me and I'll include it in this? Thanks.
If we decide to contribute to $25,000, it will have to be done as a budget revision because the money will need to be there before the new budget rolls over. The festival's July 3rd. And obviously, they can't make all the reservations and get all of the acts and all of that done in 2 days. So we're going to have to do it in whatever fashion that Mrs. Roberts thinks that we can do it. But we'll have to do that before this budget year is over in order to properly fund them because you have to lock the bands in and other things in advance. All right? Okay.
That's a good point, because when Jack was here last week and we did outside agencies, I was under the impression, and I understand what you're saying about the budget here, that it was for the 22 22-23 budget, so it's not. We would have to do a budget revision if we decide to do that.
I mean, I don't want to speak for him, I think he was here last week for the 22-23 budget. I think that's what last week's presentation.
That was my understanding as
Yes,
well.
now, will he come forward and want similar money in this year? I don't know, but I do believe last week's presentation was for his 22-23.
Oh, so that's not for this coming July.
He was here to present his 22-23.
Yeah.
So I don't want to turn or, answer questions that don't involve him, but when he and I discussed it, he was coming to the meeting to present his 22-23 budget. Okay.
This is the 50th year.
I had that, yeah, I had that in the minutes from last time that he was requesting $25,000. But I didn't specify what year.
I mean, everybody.
I assumed it was this year and didn't even think about it.
If it's this year, then, yeah, I mean, we can deal with it, but I have put it in the 22-23 budget, because that's why he was here. I'm not saying he doesn't want
Right.
additional funds, but.
I think, obviously,
Interesting.
he wants this to be, we all want it to be a wonderful event and to grow year by year, right?
Yes, and maybe it's just a question of Jack, and I don't understand, and I had a feeling tonight, and he very well would like to come forward with budget revision.
Okay, then,
But,
so that's my question, just so I understand.
so I think that's going to be a conversation.
We just need to clarify that, yeah.
So if he does come before us with a budget revision, so we'd be looking at, for this current year that we're in, $25,000,
Yes.
and then,
But we have 5 for the future customers.
okay, so maybe an additional 20 then to get you to your 25, right? So you're 25, and then for the 23 budget year that starts July 1st, $25,000 again.
That's a question for clarification from him. In my discussions with him, he was coming last week to present for the 22-23 budget, just as everybody else was here to present for the 22-23 budget.
I wish I would have asked it then, because obviously it makes sense, because the budget year begins July 1st, and he's wanting to have this event July 2nd, July 3rd, and you have to pay
So I just
and,
think it's something I need to go back to him, and
Okay.
I'll ask him the question, and I'll send it.
Awesome.
This is the 50th year anniversary of the Grand Central Mall. I think as a celebration for 50 years of supporting our community, that it's something that we should support. But Amy, if you'll clarify that, please. If you'll get back with Jack and find out. Okay? All right? Anything else? Okay. Okay, so I apologize, but we have a need for an executive session this evening to discuss a legal matter. So I would entertain a motion for going into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session to discuss a legal matter. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, let the record reflect we went into executive session at 7:29.